Today, I want to talk about this book that absolutely changed probably a lot about my life as I know it today. The book's called Why We Sleep. I read this book back in like 2019, 2020 maybe. And the book is essentially about the reasons why sleep is important to the human brain, why it's important for our behavior, why it's important for like cognitive function, how humans function without sleep, why it's so important to have a sleep schedule and all that stuff. Essentially, I just wanted to talk about the book a little bit, talk about what I took away from it and how it improved my life specifically with like actual examples, because it's definitely one of the most important books that I've ever read. That's probably had the most outsized impact for, the quantity of time that I spent reading it to the actual amount that it's benefited me over the course of the rest of my life. One of the biggest things about that was super interesting to me was how sleep affects your cognitive ability, like your brain function, right? And your ability to retain information. The common example, right, of like a student that's like cramming at night for like a test, right? And they just like learn everything they possibly can, they pull an all-nighter, and they get to the test, and it's like, what? Like they completely fall apart. And essentially there's scientific research that's like expressed in that book and that's like relayed in that book, which is an incredible power that sleep has in our ability to retain information and how hugely important it is for us to like maintain a consistent sleep schedule and to get this, the different amount of hours of sleep that every person requires, whether it's like 7 hours, 8 hours, of 9 hours, 9 hours, whatever it might be for you a night, in order to benefit that. So the book essentially says that like once you do something like right before you sleep, right? And you're like, okay, I keep doing it, it's not working, right? You're like, oh, okay, like I'm not getting it, you know? A good example of this was I play guitar, so like I'm, back then I was learning like a guitar song and I, try to play it right before I went to sleep essentially. And I just couldn't get it. And what the book says is that like your brain while you're sleeping essentially like works in order to like strengthen these like neural connections or whatever that benefit your ability to take in information, like absorb it better, right? It essentially just like stews in your brain while you're sleeping, and then when you wake up, you're gonna be much more capable of like recalling that information and, performing that task that you like struggled with before you went to sleep. Your brain essentially like tries to solve that puzzle that you couldn't do like while you're like, tired or whatever, like at the end of the day. Your brain essentially tries to solve that puzzle, and then it basically just makes you way better when you wake up at whatever it is that you were struggling with. I literally tested it. I was like, okay, well, let me try. Like, I'm trying to play a song, I'm struggling, right? Then I go to sleep. I woke up, and all of a sudden, like I could play it well. Like I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked when that happened because I was like, oh my God, this actually works, right? And I don't know if it works for everybody, obviously, but that's just what happened to me. Like, and it wasn't something like super complicated, but it was something that I was struggling with before, like before I went to bed. Then I went to bed, I woke up, and all of a sudden I could play it. And that literally, like, just that alone, that experiment was like, holy shit, this works for me, right? I don't know if it works for other people, but it does work for me, which changed my life because I was like, that essentially realization, that experiment made me like completely stop like staying up late. And it established like a consistent sleeping schedule for me because I was like, dude, I need to have this like superpower essentially. Like, I need to be able to access that in my daily life. So that's what I started doing. That was one of the other things too, is that like the consistent aspect of it, right? So not just getting the 7, 8 hours of sleep, but like consistently going to bed at the same time and then waking up at the same time. The book essentially just says that like that's super beneficial for your brain because then it forms like a pattern and like a habit that your brain is like accustomed to all the time, that it knows, okay, this is my time. Like this is my time to rest, or this is my time to like recalibrate, develop those connections, those like neural connections to form like better because it's consistently at the same time. It's like a habit, like once something becomes like a habit, it's just like, you're set for life. Like that's what you're gonna do. The brain apparently like also recognizes that, and it's like super beneficial for it in order to establish those connections and to feel much better. And also it's better for the sleep cycles because there's obviously like multiple cycles. There's like deep REM sleep. There's like, those, all that stuff. Apparently the consistency aspect of it of just like every time you go to sleep at the same time, wake up at the same time, your brain essentially just gets better at understanding like, okay, this part of that, like I have this chunk, you know what I mean? I have this chunk of sleep and I can allocate portions of it that are already like pre-allocated essentially for like, okay, this part's going to be this type of sleep. This part's going to be the deep REM sleep. This part's going to be that, you know? And having that consistency allows your brain to just be like, to go in like without having to adjust all the time or whatever to those, like it just essentially establishes a pattern that your brain just then follows. Then obviously the other like big thing was the energy aspect of it, and like having that consistent sleep schedule and like sleeping for the 7, 8, whatever, 9 hours. For me, it's like 8 hours probably. That like predictability and that essentially that pattern apparently gives you a lot more energy during the day, which again, when I started doing this, like that's what I felt. I felt like I was much more energized than I was before, right? Because before I would just be like sleeping whenever, I wouldn't care. You know, sometimes it'd be 1 a.m., sometimes it'd be 12, sometimes it would be 11:30, whatever, sometimes it'd be 2. Like I wouldn't really pay much attention to that. And I'd wake up like tired a good amount of the days. And then when I started that pattern and I started to like establish a consistent sleeping schedule, which I've now had for, you know, whatever, 6, 7 years, I felt like exponentially more energized to the point where like I didn't need anything in the morning to like be like, oh, you know, because when I was a little bit younger, I would drink like occasionally I'd drink a bit more coffee or like I drink a little bit more tea. Now I don't, not consistently or anything, but I would feel like the need to reach for those things more often. And then when I started to have like the consistent sleeping schedule and the pattern, and like I wake up at the same time, go to bed at the same time, as I kept doing it and doing it, I did not feel the need to like get a coffee or get a tea. Like I felt like I was reaching the same like energy level of just like a neutral, like good energy level every time that I'd wake up, and it would be consistent. You know what I mean? Which was amazing. I was like, this is a beautiful, because like everyone knows what it's like to wake up, feel tired, you feel terrible, you're like, oh man, I didn't get a good sleep last night. And you wonder why, because it's like technically you got the 7, 8 hours or whatever, right? Or you might have gotten like 6, 8, 7, 8 hours, whatever. But your sleeping schedule is not consistent. So your brain isn't able to like build those connections to like establish that pattern and allocate, like pre-allocate those times for the certain types of sleep or whatever. And so it's like less adapted or whatever to be able to give you like a better rest effectively. So doing that like literally changed my life. It's one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me, like reading that book and learning all these things. Now, obviously, I can't give you exact like statistics or exact numbers from that book. Like you have to go read it yourself. But those were some of the main things that really changed my life and changed like how I operated on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, because a lot of you, people would ask me like, "Oh, why don't you drink coffee?" Or like, "Why don't you drink tea?" Like, you never drink tea or coffee, or you don't drink like something in the morning to like get you up, you know? Whatever people drink, like energy drinks maybe, which is pretty funny, but like a fucking white monster in the morning. But no, what it was just that consistent sleeping schedule and consistent rest that has just gives me energy. Like I genuinely don't feel the need to get a coffee in the morning. And I feel like I'm the most productive in the mornings too. Like the mornings are when I feel like I do the most amount of things, and I don't take any like stimulant or anything to like, or any like wake up thing to help me get through the morning, as some people say. I just wanted to share that because that book literally changed my life. It's unbelievable the impact that it's had on me just with like simple concepts that I took away from it. You know, I recommend that book to literally everybody. And yeah, it's amazing. So I figured you guys should hear that as well.